Hey guys, Blake Root is here with F64 Academy and F64Elite.com, and today I'm going to be talking about all of the new features in Adobe Camera Raw 12.3. Thank goodness for this update. Thank you, Adobe. It's something that Adobe Camera Raw has needed for an awfully long time. Let's check it out. Okay, so before we begin, this is change. Some people like change, some people don't. What happened to Adobe Camera Raw is a big change, and this is both for Adobe Camera Raw, the standalone when you open a RAW file into Photoshop, and Adobe Camera Raw as a filter. I think it's a good change. It's a change I'm already getting used to, and I just downloaded it today, not even 2 hours ago, and I jumped through it so I could find out all the new stuff for you. So if you'd like to update Adobe Camera Raw to 12.3, make sure you also update Adobe Photoshop to 21.2. And to do that, go into your Creative Cloud app and look in the area that says updates, and it should show you anything that needs an update to it right here in this section. I've already updated mine, so mine's not showing up here. If yours is looking like this and it doesn't say 21.2 in Photoshop or the new Camera Raw that was updated today, might say updated whenever you did, you want to go ahead and sign out of your Adobe Cloud account and then sign back in, and you should see the updates here. If that doesn't show you the updates, restart your computer and then sign into your Adobe Creative Cloud, and that should show the updates here in this section. So let's go ahead and jump into Adobe Camera Raw. There's some awesome new features here. I'm really excited to talk about it. All right, so first things first, it's gonna look a lot different in here in Adobe Camera Raw. So if you're used to Lightroom, this is gonna look awfully similar to Lightroom. I am not necessarily one of those people who is used to Lightroom, but I'm getting used to the way that this looks. I've always kind of liked the way Lightroom looked better than Adobe Camera Raw anyway, but now it's like I get the best of both worlds. I get my favorite program and I get a new interface to go with it. So what you'll first realize is that this interface is completely different. It's totally different. Now, it used to be that all of the basic curve, detail, color mixing, split toning, optics, geometry, effects, and calibration were all across the top right here. That is no longer there. What is across the top now is your auto button. So if you're used to seeing your auto button in the basic settings, it's not gonna be in there anymore. It's gonna be at the top. All right, so that's a big one because I use the auto button all the time. Not because that's how I process my photos and I'm a cheater, but that's because it gives me the best look for the contrast on my image before I begin. So the auto button is now up here. That's important to note. All right, now what you also notice is that now these, instead of being across the top and having to click between them, we have them opening up like this, and we have the basic and we have the curve, and then we have, you know, our detail down here. Now, the way this is lined up by default is you can open all of them up individually and it'll show you what you've edited with a preview next to it, which is really awesome. The older versions of Adobe Camera Raw, you could not do that. So I like the fact that we can actually see what we've edited now. It makes it really easy for us to go back and maybe change or make modifications to something that we did or did not want to do. Okay, so that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. Really awesome new feature there. But if you don't like this layout, if you go into your preferences here, in your preferences right in general now, you see where it says edit panel behavior as multi? Well, you can change it to single or responsive. So if we have it as single, I think that's actually the default. If we set that to single, if I open up the basic tab, then when I go to open up the curve tab, it's gonna close the basic tab. Some people might like that. I think it's actually probably better that way because that way we know where we are when we're editing something. I'll get back to the curve. I haven't really finished talking about the interface yet, but the curve has changed and I kind of like the new look and layout of the way they have the curve here, especially for color theory enthusiasts like myself. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. The next thing you'll notice here is that some of the names have changed. It used to be the HSL section. Now it's the color mixer. So the color mixer is where you're gonna find your HSL. They've also put the targeted adjustment tool for that in the HSL tab, which is awesome because the target adjustment tool used to be stuck up here and nobody ever used it because it was out of the ordinary. It's like, why would I use this when it's up here when HSL is over here? So now in your HSL color mixer, you have access to a targeted adjustment tool. In the drop down here, you're gonna see this says HSL or color. Now, if you go by color here, you can click between each individual color and change the hue of each individual color from hue, saturation, and lightness of the individual color all in one spot, which is awesome. I love this because when it's set to HSL like this, we have to tap in between each one. But there's sometimes when I just want to go into one color, I just want to go into just blue and say, okay, blue, I'm going to change you. I just want your hue to change just a little bit here, just for the color blue. And then I want the saturation to change there, and then maybe the lightness and darkness of just the color blue. This is an incredible new feature, especially for color theory enthusiasts like myself who love color grading and really get finicky and finite with those details. So what you also notice here though is that the targeted adjustment tool is not included in this section here because you're going in and you're clicking on those colors individually. So the next thing you're gonna see here is that optics, that used to be where lens correction was, that's now changed to just optics. What I really like about what they've done with a lot of these panels is they've simplified it. So instead of having all of this stuff there, which is sometimes just too much, now it just shows you the basic stuff. If you want more advanced things, you click the drop down and you can then change the lens that you would see here. But by default, Adobe Camera Raw is really smart with my Sony lenses and it knows which one is which. So very often I don't need to go in here and make any corrections here. So all I need to do is check this, use profile corrections, and I'm good to go. So I think what's great is that they've simplified this and they don't show me all of the stuff that I need to see there. Now you remove chromatic aberrations. There used to be another tab next to that was the manual next to the remove chromatic aberrations. That's now under this thing called Defringe. So if you're trying to remove any chromatic aberrations, you're gonna need to go into Defringe and do it down here. So basically what you're gonna see here is that not much has changed as far as the function of things in Adobe Camera Raw. Names have changed, interface has changed. I think it's great what they've done with it. I'm really excited about this. The one that says geometry, that used to be where we would do all of our upright corrections or scaling corrections that we needed to fix, any kind of transformation stuff that we need to be fixed with the photo. I don't tend to do a whole lot of this stuff in Adobe Camera Raw anyway. I typically do that stuff in Photoshop. So, I don't necessarily jump in there too much. I do use it from time to time. Effects, that's what we're gonna get our grain and our vignetting, and then camera calibration settings here. So that's the basic layout here that's changed as far as what layout is concerned. What you're also gonna see is that your tools are no longer across the top. So now we're in our basic settings here, which I think is great. They actually put the basic settings here because what would often happen, and I just got done recording this 30 Days to Photoshop Mastery course, and this question came up all the time. It's like, wait a second, I just went into a radial filter, and how do I get back to the basic settings? Well, you have to click like the hand icon in order to get back there. So I think it's really great that they made this settings icon here instead of a hand icon that really made no sense at all. Like I said, this has been long overdue for Adobe Camera Raw, and I think the stuff that they've done here is absolutely phenomenal. Your presets are gonna be here. So pretty much everything is pretty much still the same as what it used to be. There is another tool in here that I'm gonna talk about in a second, but I'm not quite done talking about interface, okay? So all of this stuff looks pretty good with the interface here. And I don't wanna speak too soon, but I've seen a tremendous speed increase over the last Adobe Camera Raw. So I was just recently editing some Badlands pictures and I was in Adobe Camera Raw extensively and doing stuff with these, with the radial filters and the graduated filters on big merged HDR photos was a nightmare. It was super slow. So what I've realized here is that through this interface update, they may have done some speed increases. I don't want to speak too soon. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about layout and then we'll talk about some of these nifty things that they've done with some of these tools, okay? So when it comes to layout, if you like the way this is set up with this across the bottom, I'm not used to it yet, but if I want to change it, I can go to film strip orientation and change that to vertical instead of horizontal. This is more my style. It's kind of what I'm used to. I'm used to seeing my images like this. I think I'm going to keep it this way, but if you want to switch back and forth between the two, you're more than welcome. What I like about this though, is that now I can see the difference between a horizontal image and a vertical image really quickly right here in this pane on the side. It's really modern looking. I really enjoy what they've done with that. I think it's great. I really like the change that they have here. Change can be difficult. I know, even me, I was hasty in my recording efforts for this video that I didn't even change my shirt to an F64 Elite shirt. But that's okay. My buddy Patrick Mahomes here can be MVP throwing this tutorial at you here. Let's talk about some of these nifty little things that have happened in Adobe Camera Raw that I also enjoy. So I'm gonna pop over here and we're gonna go into the radial filter. Because what you're gonna see now in the radial filter, in the brush, and also in the graduated filter, which that's what I'm gonna click on here in this graduated filter. In the graduated filter, you're gonna see a new slider here called Hue. So I kind of played around with this on the top portion of this image here. So let me go ahead and show you what I did with this. This Hue slider will actually make a modification and a change to the hue of every color that is within the area that you've painted. So in particular with this one, I just basically what I did with this, if I press Y for my mask here, I just made a mask that went from the top of my image to the bottom of my image with this graduated filter. So what happens with this hue adjustment here is I'm going to turn this fine adjustment off for a second. Watch what happens as I move this over. It will shift and change the hue of all of the colors and push all of those colors more towards the direction and the color that you're telling it to change. So if we look at orange here, as we move this to the left, you're going to see that orange is going to start to turn more of the magenta colors here. So we're pushing orange over and orange is now turning more towards the blue colors, which is now turning and changing more towards those cyan colors. So you can see that this is doing a whole hue rotation around the color wheel for all the colors within the area that you've masked. So imagine using this with maybe some range masking, which can be really nice to pinpoint individual color or even a color mask if that's something that you want to do. What's really cool about this is that once you get the color about where you want it to be, so I'm about right here, I can then use the fine adjustments. And as I move this, it moves a lot slower to get a really nice fine-tune adjustment for that hue shift. This is phenomenal for images like this. I couldn't necessarily get this type of hue shift unless I went into Photoshop to get really deep down in there, which now we can do it right here in Adobe Camera Raw, which I think is awesome. Couple that hue shift with something like the temperature adjustment for that given area, and you really have a lot of control now over the color and how it's shifted and shaped. Now, this is just with a graduated filter, but imagine using this with a radial filter or even something like the brush combined with a range mask, whether that's a color range mask or a luminosity range mask, and holy cow, the potential for color adjustment here in Adobe Camera Raw, breathtaking, awesome. This is exciting stuff. I'm gonna jump over and show you another feature. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but man, you gotta get in here and experiment. I may go in here and do individual tutorials on each one of these to discuss these things, but really what I want you to do is experiment because it's fun. They've made it fun. Photoshop is fun. It shouldn't be a chore. Adobe Camera Raw is fun. Get your hands dirty. So I'm gonna go over here to the basic adjustments, and in those basic adjustments, we have the curve. You're gonna see some differences here now with the curve. Now, changing between the parametric curve, which is the one that does the highlights, midtones, and shadows by moving these sliders like this, which is, again, we can get some great control over these colors. Holy cow, you should get excited while you're editing. Okay, if we go into the next one over here, this is gonna be the point curve, and the point curve allows me to grab a point here and move that and maybe give us, a nice little S curve on here. Look at the curve control here. Oh my gosh, I love curves. So if I go over here to the red, this is what I really love about what Adobe has done here. They've now given me a gradation between where red and cyan is. I've been teaching color grading and color theory for a very long time, and in my Zone System Express course, I talk extensively about how these curves should be colored so that you know that an increase is gonna make your image more red and a decrease is gonna make it more cyan because they're opposites on the color wheel. Talk about color control here. Holy cow, this is awesome. All right, now going into green. If we move it up, we're gonna get more green in our image. We move it down, we're gonna get more magenta. The cool thing about this is it's now responsive. Like, I know color theory well. I know what these curves do because I talk about it all the time. But for someone who's not in here all the time, this is great because it gives them a lot more control over color because they can see that where an increase and decrease in color is gonna come from their curve. I guarantee more people are gonna be color grading their images with curves now in Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw because of a feature like this. It's simple, but it's awesome. So if we go over here, I'll explain this a little bit more. Let's say I put 3 points here. That's a midtone point. That's a shadow point. That's a highlight point. I can add more yellow to my highlight areas, more blue to my shadow areas. You see that? Look at that right here. Now we've had this capability, very similar capabilities to this in Adobe Camera Raw for a long time, but I think this is a much more responsive way to do it. And I'm pretty sure that people are gonna be using it a lot more because it's visual. You're able to see it. That's awesome. Kudos to you, Adobe, for doing all this hard work. This is incredible. I really appreciate everything that they've done here. But last but not least, probably my favorite new feature in Adobe Camera Raw, and I've been begging for this for a very, very, very long time. I'm gonna go into a brush and watch this, okay? Now, this might not excite you, but it excites me. I'm using a pen. Watch this, okay? You're seeing my mask. This is very light pressure sensitivity here. Watch this. Pushing harder, 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 harder. Oh my, we actually have pressure sensitivity in Adobe Camera Raw, folks. You Lightroom users, you're probably like, whatever, we've had that for a long time. But guess what? We have it in Adobe Camera Raw now, and that excites me. Doesn't really matter what I brushed on there. You don't need to see it. Just the fact that you can do pressure sensitivity with brush work now in Adobe Camera Raw. Holy crap. My Raw workflow just got a tremendous update and upgrade to it. Now, I've taken about 2 hours to go through Adobe Camera Raw and really push every button, every slider, move everything to make sure I grabbed everything out of here that I could to show you the new things in Adobe Camera Raw 12.3. But I may have missed something, and if I did, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Love for you to carry on the conversation. I also want to hear your thoughts. Do you like it? I love it. I think it's incredible. We've been needing something like this for Adobe Camera Raw for a long time. Now, I got to get moving because I just recorded a 30 Days to Photoshop Mastery course that had a lot of Adobe Camera Raw in it. And you know what I need to do now? Go and update all those stinking videos. So I'm signing off. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this. I sincerely hope you appreciate this. I appreciate Adobe. I hope you appreciate Adobe too. Man, oh man, is this an incredible update. Thank you.